Today, we are breaking down House of the Dragon, Season 3, Episode 7. There's a lot to get through. This might be my favourite episode of the season, and it's got some of the most memorable moments in the show's history. And I really do think people are going to be talking about that Dracarys moment for a long time. We open up once again with the Tapestry title sequence, this time with a new addition, the Blood and Cheese style Butcher's Ball, showing two soldiers laying dead back to back. At first, I thought they may just be plain dead, but when we flip around, you can see they are wearing green. More threads get added, putting Criston Cole in the centre, riddled with arrows, all inside a seven-pointed star, the symbol of the Faith of the Seven. We jump into Helaena dreaming, something that runs through this whole episode, and honestly, through all 3 seasons. Her cryptic lines have been foreshadowing events all along, so it's great to finally see things from her point of view for once. She's at King's Landing, approaching a horse and carriage, a symbol of freedom that plays off the wooden horse she was staring at last week. Might be a stretch, but it could be foreshadowing something grim for our favourite dreamer. She steps out of the sun too, echoing what Alicent said last episode about walking out into the sun. The riding imagery carries into a later vision of her on her dragon. That's straight from the book. Her trying to escape again. Riding a horse away from danger and riding a dragon toward a screaming crowd mirror each other. Aemond asked her to fly into battle, so I wonder if this dragon shot is her imagining that exact outcome. Rhaenyra wakes Helaena up, and her opening line, "I'm sorry to disturb your rest," is a lie. She's not sorry at all. She tries the caring sister approach first, then pulls up rank.
You may refuse me as your sister, but I may compel you as your queen. Now tell me what you know.
Helaena talks about wanting to fly as a girl, but says the dreams got to be too much once Dreamfire came into the picture.
You believe the dragons alter us in some way?
Helena's clearly talking about how dangerous dragons are and how the power corrupts, which we've absolutely seen with Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra frames her role as restoring order, but really it's about keeping power in her family hands. But there's also the psychic bond between Rider and Dragon, which pays off later with Sunfyre. Aegon was practically dead earlier this season, and we got that huge scene at the end of the episode. So maybe the dragons really do change their riders, which would explain why Helaena won't go near Dreamfire. Personally, I lean toward the power corrupts reading, but the I don't want to be changed angle is a great addition too. It's the flip side of dragon riding as a theme this episode. Helaena also mentions dreaming of a grey mare. I briefly heard grey man and thought we'd gotten a Night King cameo. We did not. Rhaenyra doesn't care about any of that and just wants to know how the Battle of Tumbleton turns out, but Helaena won't say. We also see her working on a tapestry that looks like ships under attack by fire. Probably the Battle of the Gullet, while she's stitching Jace's death scene while Rhaenyra falls apart in front of her. She might even be the one behind the opening credits tapestry. The same Samuel is writing the actual Song of Ice and Fire. Rhaenyra is clearly addicted to knowing what's coming and might even threaten the baby to get answers. It's worth noting that back in season 1, she saw the White Stag. Both of the signs she felt meant she was destined to rule. I see her more as a steward of the prophecy than the chosen one herself, after all. Daenerys descends from her too, so the line continues either way. We cut to Aemond training with his sword, clearly still struggling with his wounds. Someone who looks like Alicent approaches and kisses him, which honestly I was absolutely mortified and screamed at my TV. But it tracks with him kissing his actual mother before leaving for Harrenhal, and they have sex, except it's revealed to be Alice Rivers in the whole time. Earlier this season, Alice brought up how Alicent probably loved Aemond more of all her sons, and that clearly stuck with him. She's using it to get his child. Aemond has deep-rooted mummy issues all series, frequently a brothel called Mother's with a woman named Sylvie who was basically an Alicent stand-in. Even the name Alice echoes Alicent. Alice claims she was too young at first, which plays into his version on the bed and explains why she's acting so out of character, plus it conveniently papers over the age gap discomfort. In real life, Olivia Cook is only 3 years older than Ewan Mitchell, but I wouldn't put it past the Targaryens anyway. We also got the reminder that Alicent herself was young when Otto pushed her onto the grieving Viserys. This kids used by their parents theme runs through basically every character this show has. Aegon, Rhaena, Baelor, Jace, Luke, all of them. Aemond realizes it's Alice and freaks out. "I'm not having sex with you, that's weird." And then Alicent shows up for real. I think this starts Aemond questioning what's real and what isn't, similar to how Helaena seems to drift between walking life and vision. Alice might have sensed Alicent coming and set this up on purpose just to test whether Aemond could tell reality from dream. Or it could have been a genuine accident on her end since she asked what he saw right after. Either way, he makes the wrong call and it's Alicent who ends up poisoning him later in the episode. We see riders heading to Tumbleton carrying Criston Cole's head, and they did that prop dirty. Doesn't look a thing like him. Gwaine arrives to warn the army, having apparently ridden back instead of continuing to Old Town, maybe out of duty, maybe to stay, and look after Daeron. He passes the conscripts' buildings and defences, and Ormond shows exactly how little he cares about anyone's sacrifice, mocking Cole's death outright. Ormond frames everything as one long chess match, small, patient moves rather than one big assault. That's clearly how he sees this entire war, but I don't know how well that plan holds up against an army that outnumbers him massively. We theorised last week that he might sacrifice Daeron to turn the boy into a martyr. I don't think we'll actually get there, since I suspect Ormond dies before the final. My guess is Daeron loses his temper with him, or vice versa, and Tessarion basically will just step in and finish him off. Which would be a nicely ironic death for a guy who hates dragons that much as well. Over at the Vale, we have Caraxes and Daemon land near Lady Jane, whose situation tracks pretty closely with the book, The Maiden of the Vale, reassigned to her post since her father and brothers were killed by hill tribes when she was young. The book gives us mushroom salacious rumours about her and Prince Viserys, plus the widespread gossip about her preferring the company of women, which the show seems to be leaning into. Daemon loses it over learning Rhaenyra's alive and hiding in the mountains, living among nettles and sheep, a clear nod to Nettles from the book, who also lived in the mountains and got called a fire witch by the villagers, just like Rhaenyra here. Jane threatens to tell Rhaenyra, but Daemon buys himself an extra day. Bold strategy. Let's see if it works out for him. He mentions Rhaenyra's been hunting for Vhagar. And we cut to Adam and Baelor doing exactly that. In the book, it's Daemon and Nettles who search for Vhagar together and build a real bond. Some accounts say romantic, others more like a father-daughter relationship. The show's clearly retrofitting that dynamic onto Adam and Baelor instead, which tracks with something I called earlier this season. I thought there might be something between them, and it looks like that theory's paying off, forming a bit of love triangle with Aelin. Baelor mentions Aelin might have feelings for her, and you can watch Adam's heartbreak in real time. Vhagar's rampage also echoes the book's description of Aemond terrorizing the Trident. Appearing without warning, burning villages, vanishing again. The show hasn't made Aemond responsible for this directly, but we've theorized before that he might be walking in his sleep, essentially controlling Vhagar through their psychic bond while unconscious, which could tie back into the Helaena and Dreamfire threads too. Adam then asks Baelor to help legitimize him and his brother, but she says she's not exactly Rhaenyra's good books right now. And things are probably about to get worse, especially since she is now involved with the sister of the man who killed Jace. She points out he doesn't need a title when he has a dragon, though she has both. It's a real shift for Adam, who was content just being a knight back in episode 1, and now clearly wants what's owed to him. Back at Harrenhal, Alicent and Aemond get a walk and talk where she brings up how dangerous the roads are now, which matters later when she decides to travel alone. In the book, Alicent and Helaena were both sent to a King's Landing's brothel as punishment for calling Jace's death the spilling of bastards' blood. I wonder if the show is setting up something similar happening to her on the road. Aemond grips her hair to check she's real, and she tells him, "You are all I have left." Genuinely one of the most manipulative lines in the whole show. And I do think it cements Alicent as maybe the nastiest character here, given she's been trying to get her own kids killed all season. Meanwhile, Ormond is having a lavish dinner with a captive Corlys. Classic villain move, being generous right before turning nasty, echoing Joffrey's pigeon pie right before his own poisoning. It doesn't work on Corlys though. Ormond clearly wins over Aelin's loyalty in some way. In the book, Rhaenyra actually threw Corlys in a dungeon for trying to warn his sons, which causes men to abandon King's Landing entirely, leaving the city defenseless. That doesn't happen here exactly, but the outcome is the same either way. Corlys's men won't be defending the Red Keep. Daeron, ever the voice of reason, points out that burning King's Landing does nothing while the river laws are already at the gates. A good example of how the law of the throne blinds everyone in this franchise to the more immediate threats sitting right outside their walls. Ormond rants about the Nathi, a pacifist vegetarian people, while Corlys understandably has had enough. He asks to be returned to his cell, which costs him a finger. Daeron and Gwaine talk about how badly things are going, even floating surrender, though I doubt that plan survives given the last fake out. Gwaine suggests Daeron just fly away on Tessarion, foreshadowing something that happens later in the books. Daeron refuses. He doesn't want to be remembered as a king who abandoned his people, which, in a roundabout way, makes him the best leader in the show. He says he has no fear of insignificance, a sharp contrast to Aegon later in the episode, who is terrified of being remembered as a failure or a coward. At the Green Council, Ormond's reputation is taking a beating and he insists he's being scapegoated. Rhaenyra ignores his complaints, too consumed by the prophecy business to deal with what's actually happening in front of her. She sends Sabitha Frey home to raise a force against Harrenhal, a plot beat the show has pulled forward from later in the books. When assassins are sent after Aemond and end up dealing with Alice instead, I could see that thread returning for the finale, maybe with a weakened Aemond needing to make a stand and possibly Vhagar showing up to save him. Speaking of Vhagar, the hunting party returns with Adam and Baela having found Sheepstealer instead. The realization hits Mysaria and Rhaenyra at the same time. Mysaria clocks that Daemon's got his wife wrapped around his finger and starts working to turn Rhaenyra against him, building on their earlier rivalry from Dragonstone, where they both accuse each other of using the other. It's a solid wrap from the books, where Daemon actually kept seeing Mysaria even after King's Landing, while Rhaenyra just tolerated it. Mysaria's had one of the best arcs of the whole show. She's come from nothing, and you can see the scar on her neck that she used to hide with chokers. Now it's out in the open, a mark of survival instead of shame. But she's clearly outsmarting most of the cast at this point, working both sides of the war without a shred of guilt. Aegon's group is making their way towards Braavos, discussed in the books as one of the free cities and a former Valyrian colony. A major port of people pass through constantly. This section pulls from a passage in the books that catalogues where everyone stands at this point in the war. Word reaches that the hunters are closing in, and Aegon decides to stand his ground rather than keep running. This diverges from the books, where it's actually Ulf who retakes Rook's Rest after the battle from Season 2. His men take the castle easily, then try to kill Sunfyre. And in the books, Sunfire's genuinely alive at this point, just wandering, eating, sleeping. Ulf's men wake him up, and he burns most of them before they can finish him off. The book also notes Sunfyre could barely fly, kept trying to take off and getting knocked back down. We then get an awkward dinner between Alicent and Alice, who's pretending to be Aemond's girlfriend after literally pretending to be his mother to sleep with him. Alicent has no idea who this woman even is. Aemond calls Alice a maester of swords, which plays into her reputation from the book of using love potions on both Aemond and Criston Cole. Alicent mentions Rhaenyra now has 6 dragons, but the number shifts fast this episode. Aemond points out that Rhaenyra's dragons are ridden by commoners, whilst his side is stacked with true Targaryen riders, and he's got a fresh batch of eggs to make sure the line continues. Alice and Aemond hold hands, and Aemond offers Alicent a place to stay, clearly hoping she'll leave. Alicent goes out afterward and finds nightshade growing in the garden, the same poisonous plant Helaena warned Jaehaera about earlier this season. It's what she ultimately uses on her own son. Meanwhile, Aegon's group runs into the Black Loyalists searching for Lannister gold. They immediately recognize Tyland. Larys suggests turning himself in so Aegon can escape, but Tyland warns the Queen will flay him alive for it. In the books, Tyland wasn't at the Battle of the Gullet. He was in King's Landing when it fell and got tortured for information about the Crown's treasury, including in having his fingers cut off, which lines up with what happens to Corlys here instead. Larys represents cowardice and self-preservation above all else. I doubt that ever gets him the throne he's been chasing, and he'll probably end up living out his life paranoid and alone. Tyland represents loyalty even at personal cost, and honestly, I used to hate the guy, but he's completely won me over this season. Aegon tells them to save themselves. Tyland chooses to stay anyway. Talk about loyalty. Aegon accepts this might be his end, but he's done running and acting like a coward, a king raised never to kneel. Something we've seen echoed in nearly every one of his scenes this season. He'd rather die in a way people remember and be buried as a king alongside his dragon. Larys asks if Aegon wants him to stay, but it's clearly just a face-saving gesture. He knows Aegon won't force the issue and lets him go. Then we cut to Caraxes taking down Sheepstealer and land the plateau for one of the greatest, highest stakes scenes of the season. Rhaenyra's been searching for Vhagar, hoping for some kind of redemption. She can't keep hiding in the mountains. She made peace with the possibility that this could kill her. Daemon sees a lot of himself in her, since he also grew up without a dragon and a lonely childhood, and offers to help. The reunion gets cut short when Adam and Rhaenyra arrive. Rhaenyra's stuck in an impossible spot. Kill Rhaena and she's executed her husband's daughter. Spare her and Jace goes unavenged. In the books, Rhaenyra demands Nettle's head outright, so it's notable change that she only orders Rhaena captured here. She's clearly less ruthless than her book counterpart, which does also tracks with her hesitation to kill Daeron's double or burn Tumbleton outright. Before anything else can happen, the dragons clash, and for a second it genuinely looks like Syrax might die. That doesn't happen in the books, but the tension is real. Syrax's claws open Sheepstealer's belly before Rhaenyra pulls Rhaena away. Daemon meanwhile jumps on Caraxes to finish Sheepstealer off, but gets thrown from his saddle and the dragon gets away, so I wouldn't be shocked if he comes back for Rhaena later. Daemon could have chased him down but doesn't, which tells me that deep down he genuinely loves his daughter, even after all the years of absence. Back at King's Landing, Mysaria's giving Sylvie a tour of the throne room, clearly showing off how far she's come. Rhaenyra stopped hearing petitions entirely, another step toward the small folk turning on her. People are scared to walk the streets at night and the city watch has fallen apart. Mysaria offers to be her proxy with the people, but Sylvie questions how much real power that actually gives her, since Rhaenyra can shut her down whenever she wants. Sylvie reminds her the Highborn will never see her as anything but what she used to be, and that even a king like Viserys wouldn't have let Daemon actually marry her. It's the same trap the dragon seeds are in. Targaryen blood without a title, seen by Aemond as an insult to his house, and the same for Aelin and Adam, despite everything they've done for the war effort. There's a real hypocrisy angle here too. The moment you get real power, you are removed from the class you claim to represent, so you can no longer actually understand their situation. Rhaenyra orders Rhaena imprisoned. Aemond meanwhile finally lands the sword spine he was struggling with earlier, and Alicent shows up with drink, mirroring the early fantasy sequence with Alice. You can see the skin around Alicent's thumb rubbed raw from stress, a nice touch from the makeup team showing she's back to her old nervous habit. Aemond admits he tried to kill Aegon, and Alicent doesn't even blink since she's trying to do the same thing. She just says,
"My dear, foolish boy."
We cut to Daemon and Rhaenyra's bedroom. Noticed last week what looked like a Macbeth reference, but it's actually the shepherd's crook Daemon gave his wife. She thought her son had been avenged. Now she knows Daemon lied and let Rhaena live. Rhaenyra turns to Mysaria for comfort instead. Meanwhile, Rhaena finally gets some rest and is visited by Baelor, who forgives her for Jace's death. They are just kids who got pulled into a war none of them asked for, one that's tearing the whole family apart from the inside. Corlys's severed fingers arrive for Aelin, and there's a real fear that if Corlys dies now, neither he nor Adam will ever be legitimized. Aemond poison stumbles to Alice, who calls herself a bar now, same line from season 2, and calls him an idiot for taking the drink. Alicent runs off into the night, unsure whether she's just killed her own son. We get Helena's dream of giving birth, the child immediately taken by the queen, then cut to her atop Dreamfire as the Dragonpit gets stormed. We see the horse from the cold open again, along with Helaena and her kids happily raising chickens, an echo of what Alicent said earlier about what Helaena really wants, but the peace doesn't last and winter's still coming either way. Rhaenyra can't sleep, burns the skull, and the fiery imagery ties everything in the ending together. Helena's vision, Sunfyre's rife, this campfire. She mentions her father never dreamed because his life already was one. Near perfect rule, decades of peace, plenty of time for his model of Valyria. If only she'd been born a boy, none of this would be happening. Mysaria makes her move, playing on Rhaenyra's vanity and telling her she's certain she's worthy, even though we've clearly seen she believes the opposite. In exchange for helping the small folk, she wants the queen's full trust. I'd bet her helping Alicent gets discovered eventually, becoming yet another betrayal in Rhaenyra's inner circle. And then the best sequence of the season. The army closes in on Aegon in the woods, Tylan draws his sword, ready to go out swinging. Aegon takes a second to get his bearings, and the Baratheon guard eggs him on. They don't even recognize him at first, as he draws his sword and gives a rousing speech, but something moving behind him that he doesn't even notice yet. Sunfyre emerges from the trees, half burned, face and all, just like his rider, and tortures the entire army. Genuine goosebumps. Everyone flees to report back that Aegon's alive, and just like that, he's back in the game in a massive way. Sunfyre right there with him. Elsewhere, Ulf finally gets what he wanted. Ormund plays into his ego the same way Mysaria's been playing into Rhaenyra's, offering him Lord of the Ties as Driftmark, one of the most coveted seats in the realm. In the book, he's offered Bitterbridge, wanting Highgarden instead, but Driftmark tracks better given what's happening with Corlys right now. They toast to it, promising they'll burn for what they've done. That's the episode wrapped up, and honestly, my favourite of the season, I'll be honest with you. It pays off a ton of setup while loading the table for next week's finale, which by the trailers, it looks like it's building up for the Battle of Tumbleton. This one has a real shot of being one of the strongest seasons the franchise has ever done. If you enjoyed the video today, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and also tell me what your thoughts are on this episode.